After midnight, the city slept, except for Kieran, a young black waiter scrubbing glasses in the dim after-hours glow of the restaurant's bar. He was just about to leave when he noticed her, slumped in a booth, heels off, hair a mess, the unmistakable scent of wealth clinging to her like perfume. Eleanor Chase, tech billionaire, headline magnate, and the last person anyone expected to find passed out drunk in a place like this. Kieran could have called security. He could have snapped a photo, sold it to the tabloids, but instead he draped a coat over her shoulders and poured her a glass of water. He had no idea that act of quiet kindness would ripple into something life-altering, because Eleanor wasn't just drunk, she was running, and in saving her, Kieran unknowingly stepped into a storm that would test everything he believed about power, privilege, and second chances. Jamal Evans was used to moving fast. At 32, his days started before sunrise and ended long after midnight. Weekdays were for shifts at the downtown bistro, weekends were for gig deliveries and working a friend's food truck. It was exhausting, but every tip, every overtime hour was fuel for his dream. Owning his own restaurant, soul food with a modern twist, something that honored his roots and pushed boundaries. Raised in South LA by his grandmother, after losing his mother young, Jamal knew what it meant to go without. But Mama D taught him resilience and flavor in equal parts, how to stretch meals and make them sing, how to turn struggle into strength. The neighborhood was tough, but Jamal stayed clean, stayed focused. He wasn't chasing fame or money, just a place of his own, something real, something he could be proud of, and he was getting closer, one long shift at a time. The evening hum of Nobuya, an upscale Japanese fusion restaurant tucked into the heart of downtown LA, was a world apart from Jamal's reality. Dressed in crisp black and white, he moved seamlessly through the dining room, refilling glasses, clearing plates, offering practiced smiles. The place buzzed with sleek business deals and whispered gossip over 200 omakase plates. Jamal watched it all like a quiet observer in a different universe. He didn't envy the customers, their designer watches, perfect teeth, or blasé attitudes. He studied them. The way they ordered without looking at prices, how they treated service staff like background noise, not out of resentment, but curiosity. It was like watching a performance from backstage. Sometimes he wondered what it might feel like to sit on the other side of the table, but Jamal never let the distance between their worlds bother him. He was building his own path, one shift, one plate, one tip at a time. It was nearly closing when she walked, or rather wobbled in. Claire Montgomery, the billionaire tech mogul, in a wrinkled designer blazer and smeared lipstick, her heels dangling from one hand. Even half drunk, she was instantly recognizable. Her face was on magazine covers, her company's logo on half the city. Jamal caught the shift in the room, servers exchanging glances, a couple of guests whispering behind raised menus. She collapsed into a booth near the back, head resting on her arms. The manager pretended not to notice. A few staff chuckled, but Jamal just sighed, grabbed a glass, and filled it with water. No judgment, no questions. He approached quietly and placed it on the table. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked gently. Claire didn't answer, just nodded faintly, eyes glassy. She was rich, powerful, and clearly unraveling. But in that moment, to Jamal, she was just someone who needed a little care. Claire blinked up at Jamal, trying to focus. "Can I get sushi or soup? Something warm," she mumbled, slurring the words. She reached for the water but knocked it over, the glass clinking harmlessly as it rolled. Jamal caught it mid-spin, setting it upright with the calmness he'd earned from years in service. "I'll see what the kitchen can do," he said, knowing they were already shut down. Still, he brought her a bowl of miso he warmed himself. Between slow sips, Claire asked questions, strange, scattered ones. "You always this kind? You got dreams?" Her eyes searched his, unusually alert for someone so clearly drunk. "Sure," Jamal said, wiping the table clean. "Don't we all?" She smiled vaguely, like she found that answer funny, then slumped sideways in the booth and passed out, her head resting on a folded arm. Jamal watched her for a moment, then quietly pulled a coat over her shoulders. The restaurant emptied out, lights dimming and chairs stacked, but Jamal stayed behind, glancing at Claire still slumped in the booth. She hadn't stirred. He checked her pulse, steady, but she was out cold. He hesitated, then gently searched her bag for ID, careful not to invade more than necessary. His fingers brushed against the sleek metal business card holder. Inside, Claire Montgomery, CEO, Altabyte Technologies. But his gut wouldn't let him walk away. "Damn," he muttered, grabbing his phone and jacket. "Guess I'm not clocking out yet." Jamal helped Claire into the back of a waiting cab, her weight leaning heavily on him. She murmured something unintelligible, her breath warm with alcohol and exhaustion. He gave the driver the address from her ID, an exclusive high-rise downtown, and slid in beside her, ignoring the wary glance in the rear-view mirror. When they arrived, the doorman recognized Claire immediately and waved them through without question. Jamal supported her through the marble lobby and into the elevator, grateful no one stopped them. At the penthouse door, the biometric scanner blinked and let them in. She really was that powerful. Inside was sleek and sterile, all chrome and glass, beautiful but empty. He guided her to the bed, gently laying her down and removing her shoes. He paused, unsure, then wrote a note on the hotel stationery from the desk. "You were safe tonight. No one took anything. My name's Jamal. You can find me at Nobuya. Take care." He placed it beside a glass of water, turned off the light, and let himself out quietly, heart pounding in his chest. Claire sat back, swirling the last of her tea thoughtfully. "Jamal," she began, voice steady but soft. "I've seen a lot of people with big dreams. Most get talked out of them or never get the chance to try." He raised an eyebrow, unsure where this was going. "But what if," she said, locking eyes with him, "I invested in you? Not charity, a real partnership. You run the kitchen, the vision, everything. I provide the capital and connections." Jamal blinked. The idea felt unreal, almost like a joke. "Why me?" "Because you showed me kindness when no one else did. Because you've got grit and a story worth telling. And because sometimes the best ideas come from the places we least expect." He leaned forward, heart pounding. The chance to open his own restaurant was no longer a distant dream. It was suddenly within reach. Claire smiled. Her usual armor softened. "Think about it. This isn't about me saving you. It's about us building something real, together." Sitting across from each other in a sunlit conference room, Claire and Jamal pulled out notepads and started sketching ideas. The spark that had ignited between them the night before now fueled a shared vision, a restaurant that married the delicate artistry of Japanese cuisine with the rich, soulful flavors of Southern comfort food. "Think about it," Jamal said, eyes bright. "Miso-glazed catfish with collard greens, tempura okra, okonomiyaki with a spicy BBQ twist." Claire nodded enthusiastically. "And we could bring in some of Japan's top chefs to collaborate with your family recipes. Make it authentic, yet fresh. A cultural fusion that tells a story." They talked branding, atmosphere, menus, even potential locations. Claire tapped into her network, already lining up chefs and suppliers. Jamal shared stories from his grandmother's kitchen, how every dish had a history, a lesson, a memory. It wasn't just about food, it was about community, identity, and creating a space where cultures could meet and thrive. By the end of the day, the outlines of Kizuna Kitchen, Kizuna, meaning bond or connection, were clear. Claire had capital and influence. Jamal had soul and grit. Together, they had a dream that felt unstoppable. Late at night, alone in his tiny apartment, Jamal stared at the contract Claire had sent him. The numbers, the promises, it all felt surreal, like a dream he wasn't sure he deserved. Who am I to start a restaurant backed by a billionaire? The voice in his head whispered doubts, tangled with memories of every failure, every struggle growing up. Imposter syndrome gnawed at him. He called Claire, his voice tight. "This feels too good. Like I'm going to mess it up, or they'll find out I'm not ready." Her laughter was warm and real on the other end. "Jamal, you didn't beg for this. You earned it. Your kindness, your vision, your hard work. That's why I'm here." She paused. "Failures don't define you. What you do after, that's what matters." Her words sank in like a bomb. Maybe this wasn't just luck. Maybe it was exactly what he'd worked for all along. For the first time in a long time, Jamal allowed himself to believe in the possibility of success. 6 months after opening, Kizuna Kitchen was thriving. A vibrant hub where the neighborhood mingled with food lovers from all over the city. The buzz wasn't just about the bold flavors, but the heart behind the place. Jamal made it a point to hire local youth, giving jobs and mentorship to kids from his old neighborhood who reminded him of himself. It wasn't just a restaurant. It was a second chance, a community. In his small but carefully organized office, Jamal kept 2 photographs side by side. One of Claire, her confident smile captured on opening night, and the other of Mama D, beaming with pride at their first site visit. They were his anchors, reminders of where he'd come from and who believed in him. Each morning he'd take a moment to look at the photos and steady himself. This wasn't just a job anymore, it was his legacy. One quiet afternoon, Claire arrived unannounced at Kizuna Kitchen, carrying a leather folder. Jamal wiped his hands on his apron as she sat down across from him, her expression serious but kind. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what you've built here and who you've become in the process." Jamal raised an eyebrow, sensing the weight behind her words. "I want you to be more than just the face of this restaurant," Claire continued, pulling out the papers. "I'm making you a full co-owner." Jamal's breath caught. He looked down at the documents, legal, binding, a step he dreamed of but never dared to expect. He reached for the pen, fingers trembling. As he signed, he fought back tears, overwhelmed by the journey from a struggling waiter to a partner in a dream that was now his own. Claire smiled, standing and extending her hand. "Welcome to the future, Jamal." And just like that, he stepped fully into his new life. The next morning, Jamal sat across from Mama D, his grandmother, the woman who had raised him with tireless love and unwavering faith. He pulled out the contract and explained everything, the investment, the vision, the risks. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she reached across the table, gripping his hand tightly. "Child, I always knew you were meant for something big. You make me proud every single day." Jamal smiled, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I want to do this for you, for everything you sacrificed." That afternoon, they visited the empty space Claire had secured, a cozy corner in a bustling neighborhood. Jamal slipped a photo of Mama D from his wallet and set it gently on the countertop. "This is where it begins," he whispered. "We're going to make this real. I'm going to make you proud." Mama D nodded, wiping a tear away. "You already have, baby. Now go show the world who Jamal Evans is." The road to opening Kizuna Kitchen was anything but smooth. Renovations dragged on for weeks, bills stacked higher than Jamal had planned, and unexpected permit delays threatened to push the launch back indefinitely. Industry insiders whispered doubts. Who's this kid with no experience? While old friends from the neighborhood questioned why he was chasing a dream that seemed so far from where he'd come. Some said he was risking too much, others reminded him of the reality outside the penthouse towers. But Jamal held tight to the vision, blocking out the noise. Every setback became a lesson, every critique, fuel. He leaned on Claire's steady support and the memory of Mama D's encouragement. "It's hard," he told himself during long nights, "but nothing worthwhile is easy." With grit and patience, Jamal pushed forward, determined to prove that his dream was not just a fantasy, but a new reality waiting to unfold. Opening morning arrived with a mix of nerves and hope. Jamal stood at the entrance of Kizuna Kitchen, wearing a worn navy suit that had belonged to his late grandfather, a quiet tribute to the man who taught him pride and perseverance. Outside, a crowd had already gathered, some drawn by buzz on social media, others curious about the unusual fusion restaurant backed by a tech billionaire. The line stretched down the block. Cameras clicked, reporters took notes, and Jamal's heart pounded with every step inside the bustling kitchen. Would they love it? Would this dream survive the first real test? With a deep breath, he smiled and welcomed the first guests, ready to serve not just food, but a story of hope, heritage, and new beginnings. The first customers sampled dishes like miso-glazed fried chicken and sweet potato tempura, their faces lighting up with surprise and delight. "It's unlike anything I've ever tasted," one reviewer wrote, praising the perfect harmony of bold southern spices with delicate Japanese techniques. Jamal moved quietly among the tables, watching strangers connect with her food that carried his grandmother's spirit. When a woman closed her eyes and smiled after the first bite, something inside him cracked. Years of struggle, fear, and sacrifice flooding into that single moment of joy. "This is why I do this," he whispered. For the first time, the dream felt real. At the evening reception, Claire raised her glass, eyes shining with pride. "Tonight isn't just about a restaurant," she began, voice warm and steady. "It's about kindness, second chances, and the power of believing in someone when they need it most." She turned to Jamal, a genuine smile breaking through her usual guarded demeanor. "You didn't ask for a handout. You earned this. You remind us all that talent and heart can change worlds." To Jamal, she toasted, "the future of flavor and the reminder that when we lift others up, we all rise." The room erupted in applause, but Jamal only saw Claire's look of quiet faith, a promise that this was only the beginning. 6 months after opening, Kizuna Kitchen was thriving, a vibrant hub where the neighborhood mingled with food lovers from all over the city. The buzz wasn't just about the bold flavors, but the heart behind the place. Jamal made it a point to hire local youth, giving jobs and mentorship to kids from his old neighborhood who reminded him of himself. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was a second chance, a community. In his small but carefully organized office, Jamal kept 2 photographs side by side. One of Claire, her confident smile captured on opening night, and the other of Mama D beaming with pride at their first site visit. They were his anchors, reminders of where he'd come from and who believed in him. Each morning he'd take a moment to look at the photos and steady himself. This wasn't just a job anymore, it was his legacy. Jamal and Claire's story reminds us that sometimes the smallest act of kindness, offered without expectation or judgment, can change the course of a life forever. It's about choosing empathy when it's easier to look away, believing in others even when the world doubts them, and having the courage to chase your dreams no matter the obstacles. We all carry the power to lift someone up, to open doors that seem closed, and to rewrite our own stories with hope and determination. Jamal's journey from a hard-working waiter to a restaurant owner wasn't handed to him. It was earned through grit, heart, and the kindness of a stranger who saw his worth. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs hope today. Because when we believe in each other, incredible things happen. And kindness, well, kindness truly can change lives. One quiet afternoon, Claire arrived unannounced at Kizuna Kitchen carrying a leather folder. Jamal wiped his hands on his apron as she sat down across from him, her expression serious but kind. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what you've built here, and who you've become in the process." Jamal raised an eyebrow, sensing the weight behind her words. "I want you to be more than just the face of this restaurant," Claire continued, pulling out the papers. "I'm making you a full co-owner." Jamal's breath caught. He looked down at the documents, legal, binding, a step he dreamed of but never dared to expect. He reached for the pen, fingers trembling. As he signed, he fought back tears, overwhelmed by the journey from a struggling waiter to a partner in a dream that was now his own. Claire smiled, standing and extending her hand. Welcome to the future, Jamal.